Hello viewers, my name is Mrs. Muti from Gwenyati High School in the BCM district. Welcome to the Eastern Cape Department of Education broadcast studio. Today's lesson is about the terminology that is used in English First Additional Language Paper 2. I'll be unpacking this topic to your full understanding. And without wasting time, let me dive into the objectives of this lesson. In this lesson, I'll be explaining to you the terms that are used in English FAL exam papers and highlighting the common mistakes that candidates commit, which are based on the Chief Markers Report, the 2024 Chief Markers Report. And also I will explain what is expected. And the examples that I'll be using, I have taken them from the 2024 September English FAL Paper 2 and the November English FAL Paper 2. Now let's look at the terms. So the terms that we'll be tackling for this lesson is the setting, the irony, identifying and explaining figures of speech, themes, and stage directions. A setting refers to the time and place where the text or the scene or the stanza or the extract takes place. So what is a setting? A setting refers to the time and place where the text, it can either be the scene or the stanza or the extract takes place. Now, a setting has got where and when. Where we refer to where as the place and when as the recent event, which is the time. So most candidates, they make some mistakes where one would not respond to the setting question based on the given text, or not include both the where and when part, or not writing the event, but instead writing the clock. So what does this mean? This means that when you are answering the setting question, you need to focus on where, which is the place, and you also focus on when, which is the time. But in this case, the time we are referring to, we are not referring to the clock time or the morning or the afternoon, but we are referring to the recent event. Now we'll look at the example, which will highlight everything, maybe make things clearer for us. Right, so let's look at what Isabel says so that we know the time now where this extract is set. So, 18 years old, I think I want to be a writer. My favorite subject is English, and my favorite sport, as you might have guessed, is hockey. Anything else? Right. So we can further read Tammy's response. Yes, what did you have for breakfast this morning? Isabel laughs. So we can see now that this is a conversation between Tammy and Isabel. So this then takes us to the appropriate answer for this question, where you will say, this takes place after the debate contest. So it means that the event is after the debate contest, where at Zolile High School number 1 classroom. Then that response would have covered both the when, which is the time, the event, and the where, which is the place. I hope that one is clear. Then let's move to the next term, which is the irony. Now, what is an irony? An irony is when the opposite of what is expected to happen occurs. An irony has two parts, what is expected and what actually happens, which is the opposite in this case. Then what are the common mistakes? Learners or candidates do not include both parts of the irony. Then what is expected? You are expected to include both parts of the irony, which is what happened versus what is expected, or what was expected versus what happened. So you should show both sides. Now let's take an example so that we see whether you are getting it or not. Right, so here, this is a short story, The Wind and the Boy, and the focus is on 5.2, which says refer to lines 12 to 13. All right, so let's read the text. So the people of Khasifiti Mulemo Ward buried the boy, Fredman, but none of them would go near the hospital where Joseph Fesenye lay. Now you are expected to identify, to discuss, to explain the irony in these lines. Question is referred to lines 12 to 13. The people, we have read the line. So you are expected then to explain the irony in these lines. And the irony then would be the fact that it is ironic that the people of Khasifiti Molemo Ward bury Sejosinye's grandson, yet they do not visit Sejosinye in hospital when Sejosinye desperately needed their support. So can you see the opposite here? They are able to help, or they are able to assist in burying Fredman, but they do not go to visit Sejosinye when she is in hospital and when she needed them the most. So that is where the irony is. They were kind enough to assist with the funeral, but visiting and supporting Sejosinye, they were unable. So there you have shown both sides of the irony. Okay, I hope the irony is clear. And then if that one is clear, we can move to the figures of speech. Now, figures of speech is it's normally phrases that are used in a figurative manner. They have that hidden meaning. Now, your types of figures of speech there, we've got the simile, which is a comparison using the words as or like. We also have the metaphor, which is direct comparison, personification, where non-living thing is given human qualities, and the hyperbole is when a statement is exaggerated. Now, when you come across figures of speech in a question paper, you'll be asked to identify the figure of speech, and you must be able to identify the figure of speech. But you must not only identify, there's also a follow-up question where you are asked to explain that figure of speech. Now, when explaining a figure of speech, what is it that you should look at? So when you are explaining the figure of speech, but especially the ones that are comparison, you should state the two things that are compared and explain why those two things are compared. So you state what is it that is compared, what are the two things that are compared, and then why are those two things compared? What is the similarity between those two things? And if it's a hyperbole, you must state what has been exaggerated and why has that particular thing been exaggerated. So this is what is required from you. Right, now let's go to the common mistakes that learners make when it comes to the figures of speech. Now, the first one is writing the wrong spelling. Writing the wrong spelling, most especially when it comes to simile. Most of the learners, they write smile or similar. And you know what the markers do? They will smile back with an X on that response. So make sure that the spelling is correct. And also some candidates, they are unable to explain the figure of speech. One would just define, give a definition of the figure of speech, of which I just told you now that when you are asked to explain a figure of speech, most especially the one that is a comparison, you need to identify the two things that are compared, and then what is the similarity between those two things. And if it's an exaggeration, what is it that has been exaggerated and why has that particular thing been exaggerated? And then you would get your marks for figures of speech. Now let's look at the example. Here we've got a poem. Hard to Find by Sinesipho Jojo. Okay, Hard to Find by Sinesipho Jojo. Right. So we are focusing on 6.7, refer to lines 14 to 15, hoping that one wants to say, identify the figure of speech used in these lines, explain why this figure of speech is relevant in these lines. Now let's go to the lines. It's 14, right, 14 to 15. Hoping that one day words will realize what my heart wants to say. So you are then asked to identify the figure of speech. And now, because the writer has used the word hoping that my heart will realize, so it's the heart that has been given human qualities of doing what? Of realizing what the heart wants to say. So therefore, the figure of speech used there, it's personification, because the heart has been given human qualities of realizing. Now, when you are explaining, we said you highlight the two things that have been, because this is also a comparison. What is it that has been personified? Right, so here says words will realize what my heart wants to say. So words here have been given the human qualities of being able to do, to realize. So let's look at the answer. The answer here, the correct response is personification. Because as I've said, that words have been given human qualities. And then you explain, you say, in the same way, a person would come to a clear understanding of something, which is to realize. Words will also understand what the heart is feeling and what the heart wants to communicate. By that, you would get your 2 marks, because you have explained the figure of speech, what is personified and why has it been personified. Right. Then let's move to the theme. Now, a theme is the underlying idea or message explored in the text. Now, a text can have more than one theme. The discussion should focus on events that support the given theme. I think I will elaborate this when we have looked at the common mistakes. Now, let's look at the common mistakes. Right, so learners come up with their own themes, and also when asked to discuss the theme, they just summarize. So we have said that the theme is the main idea. Now we know that when you are doing your literature, your teachers, they have taught you the different themes that are explored in the genres that you are doing. But when you come across a question which asks you to discuss the theme, you must not come with that a classroom knowledge, where you have your theme of, where you have a list of themes. Look at the text. What does the text say? And what is the question? What is the given theme that you must discuss? Also, avoid coming up with your own theme. Look at the theme that is asked and discuss that theme. Now, how do you discuss a theme? You must then look at the theme, identified theme, and then look at the genre, whether it's a short story or it's a poem or it's a drama, and then go to that story and highlight everything that has to do with the theme. I'm going to make an example to unpack it further. Here we are looking at the short story, The Triumph in the Face of Adversity. Here you are given an extract, and then there is your theme question. 5.16, one of the themes in Triumph in the Face of Adversity is kindness. Discuss this theme. Now, we know that there are so many themes. There's the main theme and the sub-themes. And now, in this question, you are asked to discuss the theme of kindness. Now, you must go to the story and highlight everything that shows kindness, or talk about the characters that show kindness in the story. So amongst your discussions here, you can talk about Mesadike, who gives Tulisile hope by comforting her and giving her bread to take home. Or you can also talk about Tulisile's grandmother, who lends her money without expecting any repayment. And you can talk about Mr. Ratebe, who gives Tulisile a job in his fish and chips shop and allows her to take the leftovers home. So that is a sign of kindness. But we know that Tulisile was exposed to living with an abusive father. But in this question now, you are not asked to talk about the abuse that Tulisile has experienced, but you are asked to discuss the theme of kindness. So you must be very careful when it comes to the theme discussion. Do not come up with your own themes. Do not come up with the themes that you see on the study guides, but you must talk about the given theme and highlight everything in the story which supports that particular theme. Right, now let's move to the other concept or the other term, which is the stage directions. Now, stage directions are instructions that are given that guide the characters in a drama performance. They include movements, gestures, interactions with other characters or the surroundings. Now, it's more of the body language and the movement that characters do when we talk about stage directions. Now, common mistakes. Candidates, they do not focus on gestures or movements or interactions. And they often state what the character should say. So one would, instead of writing the gestures, one would say, I would tell Mr. M to say to Tammy, stop Tammy, of which in this case, you are not asked about the words that the character should say, but you are asked about the action that the character should do when saying something. So you'll be referred to lines. We'll look at that as we'll be looking at the examples. So make sure it's gestures, body language, movement when we talk stage directions. Right, let's move to the example. Right, so here we're looking at 4.23, where you are asked to refer to line 7 to 8. Be careful, Tammy. Yes, they are. If you were the stage director of this play, what would you tell Mr. M to do when saying these lines? I'm putting an emphasis on do so that you are not tempted to write what Mr. M should say, but do, which is the action. All right. Now let's read our lines 7 to 8. Right, there we are. 7 to 8. Okay. Be careful, Tammy. Be careful. Be careful. Do not scorn words. They are sacred, magical. Yes, they are. Now you are asked to state two actions, and there you are also guided by the word action, which means that you should write what Mr. M should do. Right, so the response there, Mr. M should move towards Tammy. Can you say that is a movement? Or that, yes, that's a movement. Mr. M is moving towards Tammy because he is saying, be careful. Now remember, your response should talk to the text, should talk to what is happening in the text. You must not say, you must not write something that is not in line with the context of the given text. What is Mr. M saying? Then which action suits what Mr. M is saying? So move towards Tammy because he's warning him. And then you can write, you can also point a finger at Tammy as a gesture of warning him. So be careful, Tammy. So that's what you'll be saying, you will write as an action or a stage direction. Also, you can write, he can also look him straight in the eye showing the seriousness of what he is saying, most especially in that part where he says, words are sacred to me. So the action that Mr. M should do there should talk to the action. I hope stage directions are clear. And when you are doing your drama, those who are doing Macbeth and My Children, My Africa, you will come across this question where you'll be asked to state the stage direction that the character should do when saying particular words. Right. And then that brings us to the end of our lesson. Just points of emphasis. Please, dear learners, read the text. Read the text. Read the given text. Do not come up with your own predetermined information. Look at the text. What are you given? Right. So it's also advisable that as you are reading your genres, as you are reading Crime with the Beloved Country, as you are reading The Strange Case, as you are reading Macbeth, as you are reading My Children, My Africa, your short stories and poetry, make sure that you identify these concepts. You identify your setting, you identify where you see an irony in the text, so that when you come across the text, you'll at least be able to answer questions. Also, lastly, answer questions based on the text reference. So you'll be referred to line so and so. Make sure that you answer questions based on those and answer them with your understanding. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our lesson. You can leave questions in the comment sections. Do not forget to leave the name of your school so that we shout out to you. Please share, recommend, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for the next lesson.